Good evening, YouTubers. There's a very good channel called The Narcissistic Resistance, all one word, on YouTube, run by Ollie Matthews. And I can't recommend this enough. On one that I recently listened to, there was an issue raised, and there was another issue raised, maybe on the same one, but before, about how there's a twisting of that commandment of honoring your father and mother. That's usually done by these toxic parents, and also I have heard of it being done by Satanists who are, when their kids are turning away from this, to try to rope them back into it, or at least keep them from doing anything much against it. And this is, and also it's used by abusive parents and so forth, and probably efforts to keep people from converting to some more accurate version of Christianity than the one they're already in, or to get them to not oppose their parents in some evil they're doing. And it's always taken out of context. The entire promise is, the entire commandment is, honor your father and mother, that it may be well with you, and your days may be long upon the good land the Lord your God is giving you. Now, this commandment is given after the first one, which says you're not to have any gods before Yahweh, any besides him. And in the Shema, the Yahweh your God is one. Yahweh, the word for one is the same word for one that be used for to become one flesh. One bunch of grapes, there's a potential plurality into it. So this doesn't repudiate or refute the Trinity. But getting back to this, it's obvious that the only way you're going to live long and do well and enjoy the good land that the Lord your God's given you is, as he said to the Israelites, is that you'll be obeying him and not putting anyone above him or par with him. So obviously this is presupposing that parents are godly. Also, when Jesus raises the issue of false traditions arising that circumvent the traditions of God, he gives an example of honoring your father, where a man has apparently had some need and he asks his son for some help. And the son says, "Oh, I can't give you anything. All I've got is korban. It's dedicated to the temple," is what the word means. And here the issue is not obeying a parent, but maybe this person's been a toxic parent, but he's got some physical survival issue. He needs some money for food or something, or some food, and you don't have to, you could send somebody over with it. You don't have to deal with it if you're doing no contact. The point is that it's like, you don't treat him like a stranger. Like, who is this stranger that is asking me I don't even know if he's legit or not. I don't know if he's got a legit need, if this is a scam. But you recognize that this person is a person and you know what his legitimate needs are, and it's your father, so you, or your mother, prioritize them ahead of some hypothetical stranger that might ask for the same thing. And an example that was given of obedience was, the context was, the issue was not about honoring by obeying, but the question of who did his father's will, the one who said he would work in the vineyard and then didn't, or the one who said he wouldn't and did. And the whole issue was obedience to God, and this was an example of it. And, it gives us a parallel to it. Now, honoring is not necessarily obeying. It might entail a more polite refusal to go along with something than one laden with curses and expletives, but the point is that the context of it is doing well in the land, which you're not going to if you don't obey God. He's also promised the Israelites a whole bunch of curses and expulsion if they turned against him. So you can't go using honoring your parents as an excuse to turn against God or to be weak in opposing some evil. And because honoring is not necessarily obeying them. It's, in fact, you might even argue that it's honoring them more if you can get them into a nut ward and force some treatment on them. And if you let them just go ahead and destroy themselves and everyone else. Though nowadays, in lots of states, it's pretty hard to do that, but you get the picture what I'm saying. The other thing is Hollywood. Hollywood and I think also a lot of romance novels and things, they encourage the idea of massive drama and maybe even people hating each other initially, and also the idea of people who are some, rough and gruff, but there's some softness, some kindness, some love within them that can be accessed to them. In that moment that it's just done, it's like this way it'll be always, and it's the end of the story and live happily ever after. And actually, no, in reality, this isn't how it works. And all this is like traps being set by narcissists and borderline types who have been using the media for generations to weaken people against them, to set traps for them, to be predisposed to expect to find love and goodness where there isn't, or to think that maybe somebody will mellow in their old age or something. They usually get worse. And some people are not just somebody who, these conditions that they describe as being initial or temporary and then supposedly evaporate don't. It's like whatever was going right in the movie with these people or in the book, in reality, when it goes right, it's just part of a cycle. It keeps cycling. And you never have it ironed out in any kind of stability to goodness, and that includes all. And then there's this motif that used to be in some movies where some gangster or something does one good thing in his life, and that's what we focus on, is that part of his life, as if that's the main thing, the only thing that's important. And the rest of the time he's ripping off everybody and what have you. But because of some patriotic thing or fighting some other evil, we're supposed to view him as a hero. And in Proverbs it says somewhere that the righteous man cares even for the life, the soul, the well-being of his animals, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. In other words, the best that the wicked could do is just kind of rough and nasty. And I kind of like, for example, the mercy that the Romans showed somebody being crucified was to break their legs so they'd die quicker. And yeah, it was merciful in a way, but it's hardly the same as, say, maybe giving them some painkillers or using some less nasty form of dying and killing them in the first place. And some people think that, being shoved around and treated badly, somehow there's love hiding in there, or this expression of it, and they want to believe they're loved, and they want to believe in the goodness somewhere, that everybody's basically decent. No, they aren't. No, they are not. And St. Paul and Jesus warn against wicked people, wolves in sheep clothing. Jesus denounced these narcissistic and toxic and hypocritical Pharisees in uncertain terms at one point. In the cleansing of the temple, some people try to make out like he didn't use the whip on humans, only on animals. Well, the type of whip he put together in John's Gospel, I probably went into details that some people are already trying to namby-pamby him. Namby-pambyize the image of him. It was a whip of several cords, what would be called a cat o' nine tails. And this type of whip was almost never, ever used on animals. Used a long stick type thing. This was the type of flail that was used on a human. And it said he drove, with his whip, he drove the buyers and sellers out of the temple, and also these large animals. And then, but he wasn't some out-of-control rage. There was no need to fling cages that had birds in them around and scare the birds. He told them, take these birds hence. And somebody said that when you ask what would Jesus do, remember that whipping people and tipping over tables is a possible option or something like that. So, and Paul warned that there would be people who try to pull you back into evil and escape from this untoward generation and other things like that. And you use those terms, search terms in search engines, you'll find that. Add the word Bible, and you'll find the passage where exactly it is. So, this is really important. There's been a lot of brainwashing. It's been given by Hollywood and by romance novels and all kinds of novels and stuff that seem to be written by rather unwholesome people. In fact, there was a minister back in the 1800s that denounced novels as corruptive. Now, a lot of them are for content. But just like the watching TV all the time can create a kind of altered state of consciousness because of the flicker, the fast flicker of the phosphorus, changing color and so on, the lines that make up the picture, at least on the type it's the old-fashioned type screens. I don't know about these liquid crystal type, but there's a kind of a fantasy type, an enchantment sort of state of mind or something that can be induced by reading some things. Writers, actors, whatever, poetry can just pick you up and carry you along. And music, the same. Another one, Be Good, 4000, all one word. Another excellent channel. He addressed the subject of music. And it's... and in fact, I think it was Plato once said he doesn't care who writes the laws, but who writes the music, what kind they listen to. That'll tell you how things are going to go with some people, what they're going to do. So, you need to watch out for the message in the lyrics and the very state of that enchanted state of often make-believe and some otherworldly thing. And keep your head together and re-examine all your ideas.